Hello, and welcome back to Cosmic Spark. It is I, Tando, and I'm back again with another video. I am back. I know my channel is super small, but we're going to pretend that there's already 1,000 people watching because it'll get there when it gets there. I'm just doing this for the pure passion. So for those who have watched me before, welcome. I have been silent because I do have a Cancer MC, and that is literally ruling how I meet the world. And so it involves periods of retreating into my shell, growing a new shell, hardening the shell, um, compacting my memories, memory consolidation, learning silently, molting, changing, going through the seasons. And so now that I have completed an internal revolution, I am back to post videos again. So hopefully I can now be a little bit more, I don't know, have my head in the game, I guess. So this video is going to be the Skeptic's Guide to Astrology. Astrology is a literal passion of mine. I have been vaguely interested in it since I was an early teenager, but I have been studying it personally as an autodidact since the age of 17, which makes this my 13th year of study. The significance of that, for those who care or those already in the know, is that in a full year you will have 13 lunar cycles, and the moon is the ruler of Cancer in astrology. So me being in my 13th year, which is past the 12th year Jupiterian cycle, the 12th year is actually when I completed my professional certificate of astrology. So it's kind of almost funny that I completed the higher institution certificate, which is very ninth house, very Jupiter. And then now in my 13th year is now when I can kind of step on the stage and complete this 13th year, this final lunar cycle of my journey, evolving and learning through the concept of astrology. So I kind of want to attack some of the little skeptic questions and explain my own understanding and definitions of this practice that I enjoy so much. So let's just get into it. Okay, so I've written a few questions on my phone to try to guide me and keep me on track. I am a Virgo Mercury. Brevity is not my strong suit, which is why I really want to get into YouTube properly, because it's probably the right platform for me instead of trying to squeeze everything down for TikTok, okay? So what is astrology? To me, astrology is an interpretation of cosmic data that has to do with space-time coordinates, that has to do with the geometric relationship between the planets, but largely from the planets to the sun. I'm a tropical astrologer, which means that the sun being the center of the solar system, us living in a heliocentric solar system, is what is of importance. If you were into something like sidereal, you are anchoring the definitions of the stars and the zodiac signs based on the actual location of the stars themselves. Whereas with tropical astrology, you are basing it off of a geometric relationship. You are basing it off of nothing exists in a vacuum. You know, it's not just stars float in space and then we use their coordinates as is. We are in relationship essentially with everything in our cosmos, which I'm more than happy to explain shortly. Why astrology? I would say on a personal basis, I found that yes, horoscopes were generic, obviously, but they were kind of roughly in line with things that were happening to me, give or take. And that's largely because horoscopes are dependent on rising signs. Now, rising signs are essentially the doorway to your entire chart. They are the sign and the degree that represents the exact minute of your birth. A rising sign can change super quickly within 2 hours. So, depending on what time of day you were born, you will have a completely different outlook. Like the lens with which you kind of present yourself to the world will differ based on the time of day that you were born. It can tell us a lot about you. And so this is the sign that was present on the eastern horizon at the time that you were born. It's almost like your first breath sort of thing. The sun is what's dependent on the day. The rising is dependent on the minute, and the moon is something that is fast moving as well in your chart, which is at the very least time dependent. And so learning or having enough of like a curiosity, like why, when I was a teenager, I was like, why is this like a little weird system? Know anything about me at all was enough for me to dig deep and start looking into the practice. Once I did, I started realizing it was an entire universe of information, and something like a horoscope is nowhere near enough to even touch the breadth that astrology is. And if you are someone like me, you are someone who loves data, you love swimming in data, you love experimenting, trying new things, astrology allows you to do that because there are different types of astrology. There's heaps of them. And their validity is up to you to discern and decide. And I don't think that's a bad thing. You know what I mean? I think people can use science to kind of try to explain how astrology is a pseudoscience, which I always find funny because it negates the history of astrology, in that many of the earlier and most impactful astronomers were also astrologers at the same time. And I think sometimes as time goes on, we tend to think if we have like certain markers like technological developments, or even finding or locating the modern planets that we have, you know, modern versus traditional, that we are somehow smarter than people back then. I think that's not necessarily true. I think that is a bit of a fallacy. I think many people were intelligent back in the day. And I think knowledge kind of unfurls at the right time. That's just like more of a personal perspective. And so, yeah, like there was an intrinsic tie between astrology and astronomy, and people who are interested in either tend to cross pollinate. And so people being interested in astrology led to the advancement of astronomy. And so I believe people who are into astrology will naturally, the deeper you get into it, the more that you actually start learning about the actual solar system that we live in. I said actual a bunch of times, but I don't know how else I can explain it. You do need to start understanding the astronomy of astrology to actually be a good astrologer. And I'm not saying I know everything about the astronomy of astrology, and I never even thought I would be good at physics because of how it was presented to me in school. And we were just kind of given like a little fast track, oops, sorry, we forgot to teach you, you've got exams coming up, let's just give you a little crash course, and then you decide if you want to study it in your last 2 years of school, which is literally insane. So yeah, to me, astrology is breadth, it is history. I am a polymath. I am very interested in how data and information is presented across time, cross culturally, and I try to find what you might call the truth based on recurrence of information across time and space, and then testing out things like on myself and on other people. That's the beauty of astrology, right? You can pick a house system, say the whole sign system. I'm not a big fan of the whole sign system unless you're talking about a timing technique called zodiacal releasing. I'm not a big fan of sidereal astrology, but that's just a personal thing. And a good way to test in astrology, you could even call it a scientific method, if you will, is being able to pick your house system, use it on yourself, use it on other people, and see if the definitions of what we already know to be degree theory, planetary explanations, signs, there are so many elements to reading a chart that it really does take a long time to fully grasp the nuances. And I think I've gotten to a place where I'm past um, taking the traditional or the so called modern, and I'm trying to dig deeper using my own understanding of the world, my 12th house Mercury, my Aries on the DC, and I'm essentially trying to see if I can work to up level where astrology has gone to, because I feel like it hasn't moved as far as you would expect for how long we've been doing it, but that's just a personal thing. Now I want to explain that just because we have only recently learnt about Pluto, only recently in human history learnt about Uranus, it doesn't mean that it somehow negates what we are learning. Why? We literally, I think just end of last month, had papers published saying that Uranus and Neptune, which have famously been called ice giants because it was said that in the middle, the core, the center of these planets sat rocks of ice. It was something like we all kind of colloquially will call them the ice giants. Well, now it turns out it wasn't ice, it was magma. So at the end of the day, anyone can point to any human development and say, well, we're only finding out things in retrospect, right? We can just as easily go, but how can physics be real? You guys were so confident that they were ice giants, but now they aren't. How can you say physics is a set system, a scientific system, when once upon a time you confidently called Pluto a planet, now you call it a dwarf planet? Because it is okay that modalities and subjects shift and change and grow over time, and you can just choose to be part of the architecture of a growing movement, subject, modality, over ridiculing something that you don't understand. Have a lack of passion to actually get to understand it so that you can, make it grow further. The way that I see it, there was, a lot of early science. We're talking astrology, we're talking psychology, we're talking physics, a lot of these, even mathematics, a lot of these disciplines were done by people that were polymaths, people who didn't differentiate between science and spirit. And then I think it was just a human evolutionary thing that occurred where slowly over time we began to have like a hard line in the sand. This is science, this is spirit, and never the twain shall meet. And I believe, as far as cycles go, that that cannot last forever, because I believe that there is going to be, if we're not already experiencing it, stagnation from the fact that we've gone so far from having an enmeshment of topics where they flow into each other into such separation that that particular field can only grow so much. It's going to hit a plateau because you need to have the mind that also sees or appreciates other perspectives to be able to make links. And being able to make links cross-disciplinarily between biology, chemistry, physics allows us to actually grow our understanding of the architecture of our universe. Mathematicians can only find a little slice of our entire world. Physicists can also do the same. Biologists, astrologers, we all have little links to the mechanics of the universe, and I think only by being open to each other can we all begin to understand the nature of the very universe that we exist in, because we are not being overly critical. If you are, as a scientist, are approaching astrology with your inherent bias, you are also going to produce results that align with your bias. At the same time, in physics, right, they are trying to figure out, you know, the true understanding of gravity, the true understanding of how our universe works. String theory has decided maybe we should even just work out 11 dimensions at the same time, okay? Let's work out 11 universes and then maybe we can figure out how our universe works, which does not seem like a scientific method that I am aware of. And so, if physics, science, chemistry, biology believes there is no intrinsic link to the data that they find, and then it having like a grander philosophical, esoteric meaning about the world, they will only ever be looking at the data from one way. And we might be missing a greater understanding of life simply because of the rigidity of saying, if I belong in this field, the answer cannot be X. It means that you, even if it was looking at you right in the face, you would discount information because it simply just doesn't align with what you've decided to be the scientific method. And I think, you know, empirical data is something that you can have so long as you are willing to enter something in good faith. What about the Barnum effect? So a lot of people who do not like astrology will talk about the Barnum effect, which is essentially, you know, if you give people a bunch of generic statements about things that they may have suffered, things that they may be good at, of course they're going to say that they resonate. And even if there's sentences in there that don't resonate, they're likely just going to say, yes, it resonates, because they are simply focused on the bits that do resonate. Sure, I'm not saying the Barnum effect isn't a thing. I am simply saying if you're looking at generic statements, you are going to, you're going to appeal to many people. But when you understand the depth of of astrology and how it works, everything from degree theory, the geometric relationships of the signs themselves, aspect patterns, there are so many nuances, and I don't think those nuances are bad, that knowledge has to build on itself. It is important that someone has been doing astrology for a long time, but even then someone can be rigid after studying it for a long time and decide it can only be this way, so they also discount new information. Astrology is about approach, it is about openness, and it is about practicing and investigating the things that you learn. That's why you want to collect as many charts as possible. That's why we have all these astrology websites that allow you to look at celebrity charts. Why? The more data you have to practice your theories, the more you can actually see what works and what doesn't. It's a process of elimination. It's experiential learning. Nothing wrong with any of that. Okay, so what about twins? Why can twins turn out differently if they are born from the same womb? Because most twins are not born in the exact same minute of the hour. They are born, 5 minutes apart, 10 minutes apart. And within 5 minutes, there are several things that could change. The degrees of the foundational axes, which is, like I said, what I call the ACDC, MCIC axis. That to me is the foundational cross. So the foundational cross can be at different degrees, and these degrees genuinely can tell you a lot about a person. The part of fortune, which is an Arabic lot, I actually call the Arabic lots quantum aspect projections. Just a quick little side note. Just because I feel like there's a lot of whitewashing that happens in the history of astrology, and then a lot of cultural wars. And I think quantum aspect projections both describes what they do, what they are, and that they are kind of like smaller units of a harmonic of a larger aspect pattern, if that makes sense. A part of fortune is like a secondary ascendant. It explains what you were born into, one twin's perspective of their mother and their relationship with their mother may be different from another twin's perspective of their relationship with their mother. Just because twins are born from the same womb doesn't mean that their families will relate to them in the same way. There's parts of the chart that talks about how people project onto you that can differ between degrees and signs. One twin can be born right at the end of a zodiac sign, and then within a few minutes the other one is in a new zodiac sign. So there's an inherent difference there in flavor. So yes, you can have a twin who turns out to be a criminal and the other one turns out to be a judge. Like that's perfectly understandable, and I think astrology wouldn't be interesting if it was so basic. If astrology was so basic, everyone would be doing it, and everyone would be understanding it. And just knowing your sun sign and talking about the generic understanding of all 12 signs is simply not understanding astrology. There's just so much that goes into it, but I think people should learn discernment, right? If you're not confident in your own perceptions or ability to debunk something off of its very logic, off of the way that it was presented, then I think that's just a problem that can affect you whether you're looking at astrology or not. You have to learn how to discern information. Do you think that scientists and mathematicians never make mistakes? I mean, I don't even believe in Einstein's understanding of the fabric of space-time. I don't believe that's how space works. It's not my understanding, and that's okay. I think you should be a critical thinker, and I think you should be able to at least explain why you don't like something, you know what I mean? And being able to explain that you don't like astrology from having used it, maybe having an issue with the house system, maybe having an issue with more than house system, one house system would make sense because it would mean that you have literally experimented and it didn't work for you. And at the end of the day, you can just not like it and move on and, I don't know, go to a psychologist or something. Like it's not a big deal in the grand scheme of things. But I think astrology would be much more better developed if we kept having rigorous scientific type minds in the field, and less of shaming of scientists who want to straddle or have multiple interests between the sciences and anything in the realm of the spiritual. I think we would be a lot further along, and I think there's a need for polymathy between astrology and the sciences that we know and love, if you will. Okay, I saw something on Google when I was looking. I was trying to think of like what are the big skeptical questions, since I don't think like one of those people. And Google said there are no known physical forces like gravity or electromagnetism that affects the human body, and that is simply inaccurate. It is simply inaccurate. Why does gravity work for us? Like, why can we remain tethered to the ground? Because it's a mixture of our body mass and the center of gravity, the center of mass of the earth that we sit on. It's that relationship that keeps us on the ground. Okay, not just that. Everything, there's a theory that I have called the factor 3 theory. I'll make it an entirely separate video on that. You need 3 factors to complete a circuit, I would say. And so we have the relationship mass on mass between us and the actual earth that we live on. And then the sun and earth have their own geometric relationship, and they have a barycenter. But because it's like the mass of earth and then the mass of the sun, which is just like the biggest mass of anything in the entire solar system, they're kind of pulling on each other, right? And so there ends up being this point that they end up gravitating around. Because the earth is so small, the sun is so big, that point would be within the sun itself in this case. So the geometric relationship we have to the sun in terms of where we are on planet Earth determines how we end up relating to the Earth itself. It's all a geometric relationship. There is a geometric relationship between the planets themselves, like, you know, how far they are, but really the main thing is the luminaries. The luminaries are a big part of my factor 3 theory. The moon governs fertility cycles, not just for animals, but for human beings as well. We are tidal, if anything, because of the moon. Ask anyone who has worked in a service job, ask a nurse. People go crazy on a full moon. It is a phenomenon that we know to be true. Also, we just wouldn't have a body clock, right? Like circadian rhythms wouldn't exist without a sun. You cannot say that the electromagnetism of the sun doesn't affect us at all. Both luminaries are entirely governing the way our entire solar system works, and they need each other. The sun needs the moon needs the sun, and we need both of them to understand ourselves, to understand the rest of the universe. And so, yeah, sometimes in our want to disprove something, we end up just making false statements and maybe even disproving another area of science and what we know to be true, just in the pursuit of saying that astrology doesn't make any sense. And I think that's like the main things that I wanted to talk about, because this is almost 30 minutes and I'm like, ain't no need to talk any more than that. So if you have always been into astrology but have never really explored it to its fullest depth because you felt judged by other people, do your thing, girl. Life is too short. You could just be super passionate about cats and know everything about cats, and someone can say, how is that going to enrich your life? And if you're interested in it, learn about cats, girl. If you want to learn about astrology, learn about it, enjoy it. If someone doesn't like it and they're your friend, your family member, your partner, maybe just don't share that part of your life with them. Maybe go on the, Reddit forums or YouTube and nurse your own interest in private. You shouldn't need someone to validate your interests to pursue them. And you should rigorously test everything that you're interested in, even astrology. Maybe go watch someone talk about, is it called Radio Mantis or something? That's another house system. Go watch someone talking about the Cox system and what they love about it. I know my astrology teacher last year was obsessed with the Cox system. I don't really like it. Placidus is for me, girl. Placidus all day, every day. I use my Arabic lots in Placidus. I've even done horary using Placidus. I just think Placidus makes geometric sense. It makes harmonic sense with my understanding of how we need to understand the universe through harmonics, essentially, So yeah, If you like this video, please let me know down below. Please let me know if you want to see more of this stuff, and I will be trying to actually record. I think the worst part is the very first video that you ever post, right? And then after that, it's just a matter of getting in a rhythm. But thank you so much for your time, and I'll see you in the next one.